Hey, good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for coming. It's a happy Friday for a lot of people. Really appreciate you coming today. Look, today we're here to discuss the conclusion of the arson case that caused $11 million in damage to the Daniel Carter Beard Bridge. And of course, it was more than just damage to the bridge. A lot of people were inconvenienced, commuters trying to get to and from work, people trying to go out for the evening or to get some recreation, businesses along the path and near the bridge who lost a lot of customers because of the closure of the bridge for all those months. Before I share the details of exactly what happened, I do want to commend Cincinnati Fire Department Chief Frank McKinley, the fire investigators who relentlessly investigated this case and worked to solve it, and the entire fire department and all the police agencies who assisted with the investigation. Look, these folks spent a lot of time and had to go through a lot of resources and video frames to provide answers to what happened. But the most important thing is that they identified the people who committed this offense, and these folks were brought to justice, and the main arsonist will go to prison for a very long time. There have been many rumors about how this fire started. It was not a homeless camp. It was not a political message. In reality, it was one man who set the fire because he likes to set fires. Terry Stiles purposely gathered debris and brush under the Big Mac Bridge and set it on fire with a lighter in the early morning hours of November 1st, 2024. When the fire didn't immediately ignite, he brushed his arm across it, scattering the smoldering embers across the surface there. And those embers then burned the composite decking and the rubberized surface of the playground under the Big Mac Bridge. And from there, the bridge caught fire. It may not have been Stiles' intention to set the bridge on fire, but that was the result of his reckless action. And he will spend more than 9 years in prison for aggravated arson. So I'm going to talk to you about how the events of the evening unfolded and how the suspects were identified. This is a photo of the 1,000 Hands Playground right underneath the Big Mac Bridge. This obviously is post-fire. This is the charred remains. And you can also see the bridge right above them. You can see just visually the structural damage. Of course, engineers found things that we couldn't see from our viewpoint. The fire at the playground was extinguished relatively quickly, but the bridge itself, that took quite a while to take care of. The fire could be seen for miles. It's very, very bright here, and it's a miracle that nobody driving over the bridge was injured. We do know that at least one car turned around and went north on the southbound lane into oncoming traffic because he didn't want to drive through the flames, which we can all understand for sure. And we learned this with, we also have a side view on the right and an aerial view of the fire on the left. And these were taken largely from local surveillance videos. There's still shots of the active video. But the surveillance videos detected more than just the flames. And this is where it gets very interesting. This is where the Cincinnati Fire Department just did old-fashioned gumshoe sleuthing to figure out who set the fire. They began, of course, by surveying the area, and that's when they were able to detect a green van on the parking area at Sawyer Point. They did track it eventually driving south on Reading Road, turning down Eggleston Avenue, and getting to Sawyer Point at 12:11 a.m. on November 1st. There were 3 adults in the car: Terry Stiles, Zachary Stumpf, and Caitlin Hall. They were driving around looking for scooters to steal. And investigators relied on not just the video surveillance cameras, but other cameras, other agencies, interviews, phone records, license plate data, lots of sources to put this case together. They drove around the Sawyer Point, as you can see, and went over to the east end, past the boathouse, came back, left Sawyer Point, going up Eggleston, turning right on Central Parkway, doing a U-turn near the casino, and coming back down towards Sawyer Point just before 2 a.m. The van enters Sawyer Point for the second time, at 1:56 a.m. And this photo shows a green van with its headlights on at the corner, the intersection of Eggleston and Pete Rose Way. And in the background, you can see the Sawyer Point building for reference. They parked on the east side of the parking lot, past the boathouse, and in this photo, we have the arrow points to where the van is detected. You can see the pickleball courts. You can see to the left the walk along the riverfront park, and we know the river is to our left in this photo. We also know that they walked. Caitlin Hall stayed in the car with her 3 children, and Stumpf and Stiles got out and took a walk around the park for about an hour. They arrived at the playground at 2:38 a.m., or they're seen getting close to the playground at 2:38 a.m. in this this photo. And we see them behind the playground at 2:40 a.m. And then we know that Stiles gathered debris and brush, like I said earlier, used his lighter to light the fire, but it didn't immediately light, and so he just brushed it away with a sweep of his arm, scattering the apparently smoldering embers across the area. And at 2:57 a.m., you can see the first glow. I know it's hard to see. The first glow reflected off the structure of the bridge at 2:59 a.m. 2:57 a.m., whatever's written there. We detect Stumpf and Stiles outside of the playground at 2:59 a.m. The van exits Sawyer Point at 3:05 a.m., but it has its headlights off this time. And not long after, at 3:13 a.m., the surveillance camera detects the flames rising above the 8-foot-tall fence surrounding the playground at that time. And really, in just those few minutes, even though it was not a condensely built fire, and had been spread out, it rose that high in just those few minutes.
What time did the van leave?
3:05 a.m. The first 911 call came in at 3:20, and we're going to play it for you.
Cincinnati 911, what's the address of your emergency?
Yeah, you guys probably already know about it, but I was coming over the Big Mac Bridge, and there's black, thick smoke billowing up onto the deck to the point where you almost can't see it. It's worse than a thick fog. So I'm guessing there's a fire underneath the bridge.
Are you coming into Cincinnati or going into Newport?
Going into Newport, but it's on the Cincinnati side of the river underneath the bridge. It's thick black smoke like a car fire or house fire kind of looking.
Okay, so you're southbound I-74 at Daniel, is that correct?
Yeah, I was going over the 471 bridge.
Okay, give me 1 second here.
And I don't know if you guys already know about it. I'm going to try to look. Yeah, there's a massive fire on the Ohio side. I'm looking at it from the Kentucky side now.
All right.
It's like roaring fire under the bridge.
Okay.
Oh, I've never seen anything like that in my life, but that is,
Okay.
you're going to probably want to send more than one fire department out. It's nasty, nasty.
Okay. And there's a fire there, is that correct?
It's as tall as it's hitting the bottom of the bridge from the surface street.
All right.
It's at least 20-foot flames.
Okay. All right. It sounds like we have a few calls in about this. I'll go ahead and get this to know. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
He was over in Kentucky and could see it was a massive fire. It really, and we all have seen the photos close to the time of the event. It was huge. But while we know there was a fire and we got reports, we know there was a van, we had to figure out who was in the van. And this is where the gumshoe sleuthing was pretty effective. There were hardly any cars on the road, on the city streets anyway, and this was a green van was all we saw, all that was seen at Sawyer Point. So it was clear to fire investigators that this van was carrying the suspects. So investigators used flock cameras from that night and other nights to get an idea of what the van looked like. We can see it here, but they could not read the license plate until one person looking at the video realized it was a paper temporary tag. So this gave them some help. So with the cooperation of the BMV and all these flock cameras, they learned that there were only 3 green vans with temporary tags on them in our area. And using flock cameras, they found all 6 of them. I hope I said that right. Yeah. There were 6, yeah. Sorry about my mistake. And 2 of them were visually matched to the suspect's van. One of them was registered to Caitlin Hall. Fire investigators went out to interview her, and they caught her in several lies. 4 suspects were arrested on December 10th with the help of several police agencies and the SWAT team. And here they are. We already mentioned Terry Stiles. He set the fire. He, along with everybody else here, pled guilty. Stiles, as I mentioned, charge of aggravated arson and 1 count of arson, will spend over 9 years in prison. Zachary Stumpf pled guilty to obstructing justice and was sentenced to drug treatment and probation. Caitlin Hall was convicted of obstructing official business, which is a second-degree misdemeanor, so much less serious, and sentenced to 1 year of community control and 300 hours of community service. But here's the 4th guy. Now, what's he doing there? We know there were 3 adults in the vehicle that night. James Hamilton. On December 10th, when police went to arrest Stumpf and Stiles, James Hamilton attempted to help them evade arrest. He was convicted of obstructing official business and sentenced to 90 days in jail with credit for time served. He incidentally is currently on probation for an unrelated drug charge. And look, before I conclude, I want to tell you what an incredible investigation this was. The Cincinnati Fire Department investigators were incredibly professional and diligent and tracked down this van out of all the hundreds of thousands of vehicles in our county. They found it. All the different agencies came together to help. I'd also like to thank the Hamilton County Police Association SWAT team, the Cincinnati Police Department, Reading Police, and the Woodlawn Drone team. And I'd like to conclude with an email that I got from our Assistant Prosecutor Robert Vick, who handled this case in court, and he writes, I would mention that Mr. Stumpf asked to speak to investigators and agreed to tell them what happened that night. Mr. Stumpf described how Mr. Stiles set the fire. It's not uncommon for co-defendants to point the finger at each other, but Mr. Stumpf's telling of what happened that night did match up to other evidence that had been gathered. When Mr. Stiles learned through discovery process that Stumpf had spoken with the Cincinnati fire investigators, Mr. Stumpf, through his counsel, asked to speak to them too. Mr. Stiles' in his interview, he tried to lay the blame on Mr. Stumpf. But his statements didn't make sense, nor did they match up with the evidence, the other evidence collected. After about an hour and 45 minutes, investigators told Stiles that his statement was untruthful. And at that point, Mr. Stiles just up and came out and said, I did it. Mr. Stiles spent the next 15 minutes confessing to the fire. He also admitted to starting fires for years because he likes fires. Fire investigators did such a wonderful job with the interview of Mr. Stiles that at the conclusion of the confession, Mr. Stiles told the investigators he loved them and thanked them for keeping Cincinnati safe from criminals. Apparently, Mr. Stiles did not recognize the irony of his statement. And now we'll take questions.
So Connie, if Stiles admitted to a bunch of other fires, what's going to happen now with him?
Well, he's going to prison for 9 years. I don't know if he told the investigators what other fires he set, but he did say he had been setting fires for years. That's all the information I have.
So do you know whether the investigators are now going to go try and solve those cases?
Nope, I have no information on that.
Do we have any idea just how much brush and debris was needed to cause the fire to spread the way it did? Was it like a
Yeah.
small pile?
I don't think the investigators told us that. I mean, we sat down with two of them and went through all of the work that they had done, including most of what you see here today. They didn't know. All they knew was from Stiles' statement.
What was the evidence that linked Stiles to being the one that started the fire? You had mentioned that the evidence didn't support his claims.
Well, first of all, we know that the fire was started, a fire was started, and we have the statement of Mr. Stumpf and Mr. Stiles. Keep in mind that investigators first went to speak with Caitlin Hall, and they got some good information from her, pointing to Stumpf and Stiles.
Why did Caitlin Hall stay behind?
Her children were in the car,
How many of them?
3.
So the three of them went out with 3 kids in the car looking to steal scooters in the middle of the night?
Yes. It was a Halloween thing, I guess.
Were drugs a factor in any of this? I know that.
We don't. I mean, we know that Stumpf is going for drug treatment. We know that he's got I think he's the one with the prior. But so somebody has a drug problem. I don't know. I can't tell you who. And it's not relevant to this case.
And this might not be relevant either, but can you describe the relationship between all 4 of them? Like, 3 of them have the same address, and was there
So,
they knew each other for a while?
so I don't know how long they've known each other, but obviously Mr. Stiles is much older than these. Miss Hall is 23. She's got 3 children with Mr. Stiles, and yeah. Yeah.
So clearly this would have just been an act of vandalism had that playground not been under the bridge. The city put the playground under the bridge. ODOT allowed that playground to be under the bridge for years. Isn't there some culpability here, criminally?
Well, you got to keep in mind that the materials that were used in the playground are used in playgrounds everywhere, and fire personnel do walk up and down Sawyer Point 4 inspections on a routine basis. That's their jurisdiction, and there was no, to our knowledge, there's never been any report of any concern about it being a danger to self-combusting. So I think it's, in my opinion, without doing any legal research, this happens from time to time, and it's only because of a human interference, a human setting a fire, that the bridge was damaged.
Cincinnati has such a unique history with bridges and them being closed down. Obviously, they're in charge, or obviously charged in this case, but is your office looking to do anything in the future to try to prevent this after seeing what a headache this caused? And like I said, Cincinnati's a very unique case of this, things happening like this.
Well, that's not the role of this office. We're not an investigative agency. I don't represent the city of Cincinnati. So we really, until one of my clients, which would be countywide, asks for some legal assistance, we would not be doing that on our own.
So, Stumpf clearly flipped on Stiles, but under normal circumstances, if you have 2 people that are there in the commission of a crime, you would think that Stumpf would have been also charged with arson. Was it just a great plea deal for him?
I think it was the appropriate plea for him, the appropriate charge. Look, the assistant prosecutor who handled this case has been focused on arson cases for decades. And I trust his knowledge and his recommendation. In the back.
Do you know how, if an accelerant was used or what he used to start that fire? Was it just a lighter? Or?
Just a lighter. But keep in mind that there was composite decking, which has petroleum in it. There were rubberized, most playgrounds have these things, if you have kids, and you've had to learn that over the years. And they could be recycled tires. They have petroleum in it too. And unfortunately, that's how it went up.
All right, I think that's good, because that is the information that this office
Yeah,
has, which is
yeah.
a lot. And the fire investigators are not here to kind of help with further information, but this is what they have given us.
Can I ask just one more question? Can you talk about why Stumpf had arson charges
Initially.
originally?
Because it was before they found out who did what. All right, thank you, everybody. It's nice to put this one to bed, and appreciate your attention.